When I woke up from the coma, the doctor leaned close and whispered, "Your son-in-law offered me money to inject you with this." He said he refused. I looked at the label and the words froze in my throat. The man I treated like a son, trusted like family, was a traitor hiding behind affection. I couldn't just let it go. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and comment what time it is where you are watching this from. The first thing that hit me was the light, sharp, blinding, followed by a steady beeping sound from somewhere on my left. I tried to move my hand and felt a pull, something attached to me. Plastic tubing, a hospital. My mouth tasted like iron and chemicals. I blinked hard against the fluorescent lights, trying to make sense of the white ceiling above me. One of the tiles had a brown water stain shaped like Ohio. I stared at it, clinging to that shape while my mind struggled to catch up with my body. What happened? The door creaked open. Footsteps approached, slow, practiced. A man in a white coat appeared at the edge of my sight. As he leaned over me, his face came into focus. Middle-aged, streaks of gray in his hair. Eyes worn from long nights and too many emergencies. "Mr. Riley," he said, his tone full of cautious relief. "Welcome back. I'm Dr. Mitchell. Can you tell me your full name?" "Percy." My throat rasped. "Percy Riley. Good. Do you know where you are?" "Hospital." I turned my head slightly and saw the IV stand, the monitors, the oxygen tube under my nose. "Emory," I muttered. "That's right," he said, pulling up a chair beside the bed. Unusual since most doctors rarely sat. "How are you feeling?" "Weak," I croaked. My throat burned, confused. "How long have I been here?" "3 days," he said quietly. "You were brought in by ambulance, unresponsive. 3 days." The words floated in the sterile air between us. I closed my eyes and tried to grab hold of my memory, but it came back in fragments, like puzzle pieces scattered across a floor. Dinner. I remembered dinner. My dining room table, the one I'd refinished last spring. My daughter and her husband sitting across from me. Then nothing. Edith, she was there, serving the casserole. Steam rose from the chicken she'd cooked. Craig poured wine into my glass, that easy smile of his flashing like always. We'd talked about their trip, something about the coast. I took a bite, sipped the wine, and then darkness. "Mr. Riley," Dr. Mitchell's tone shifted, cautious now. "Your toxicology report came in yesterday. We found traces of aconitine in your system. It's a rare plant-based poison." The word hit me like a fist. My fingers gripped the bed rail tight. "Poison?" I whispered. "Someone poisoned me?" He nodded slowly. "Based on the levels and the timing, yes. Most likely during a meal at home." Dinner? The last normal moment of my life. I saw it again, the dish, the glass, Craig's smile. My stomach twisted. "We had to flush your system," Dr. Mitchell continued. "You were in critical condition. Your heart rate had dropped dangerously low. If paramedics had arrived 10 minutes later..." He stopped himself. He didn't need to finish. Someone had tried to kill me. Not an accident. Not bad luck. A deliberate attempt. I looked at the monitor. My heart rate climbing. 63 years old. Retired 5 years ago from my restaurant. Living a quiet life in the same house I'd owned for 3 decades. No enemies, no debts, no fights. Just dinner with my daughter and her husband. My hand reached automatically for my phone on the bedside table. Edith must be terrified. 3 days with no contact. She'd have called, maybe even come by. "I need to call Edith," I muttered, stretching for the phone. "She has to know." "Mr. Riley, wait." Dr. Mitchell's voice stopped me. His face tightened, his jaw working. "Before you make any calls, there's something you need to know. About your son-in-law." My hand froze midair. "Craig." A cold weight settled in my chest. "What about Craig?" Dr. Mitchell hesitated, studying my face. His expression told me everything before his words did. Hesitation, guilt, dread. "He was here," the doctor said finally, each word slow and deliberate. "Yesterday evening. While you were still unconscious." The room shrank. The machines faded to background noise. I stared at him, my heart pounding. What did Craig do? Dr. Mitchell leaned back, his fingers interlaced. He looked troubled, more than that, burdened. "He came to my station around 9 p.m., during night shift when fewer people were around," he said carefully. "He had an envelope." I gripped the bed rail, waiting. "He told me you were suffering." That you'd want peace, Mitchell continued. His jaw clenched. Then he showed me a vial and offered me $15,000 in cash if I'd inject it while you slept. The words didn't make sense at first. They couldn't. Craig, my son-in-law of 7 years who called me Pops, borrowed my tools, shared Sunday dinners, had offered money to have me killed. "Show me," I said hoarsely. Dr. Mitchell reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone. "It's with the police now, but I took a photo," he said, handing it to me. My hand trembled as I took it. The picture was sharp, a small glass vial sealed in an evidence bag. I zoomed in on the label. Succinylcholine 20 ml. I knew that name, not from real life, but from the crime shows Edith and I used to watch before she married Craig, before she stopped visiting as often. "That's a paralytic," I whispered. "Stops breathing." "Yes," the doctor said, moving toward the window. The early light from the Atlanta skyline filtered through the blinds. "It causes respiratory failure. You'd have died quietly, looking like you'd passed in your sleep." The truth hit me all at once. "The dinner," I said hollowly. "He poisoned me at home. When that didn't work, he came here to finish it." Dr. Mitchell turned back toward me. I refused. I reported him immediately. Hospital security detained him, and Atlanta police arrested him in the parking lot around 10 last night. My fist clenched against the sheets, the only sign of what was boiling inside me. Rage, cold and absolute. Not the kind that burns, but the kind that freezes everything it touches. Craig had tried to kill me not once, but twice. Dr. Mitchell looked uneasy. "Mr. Riley, do you have any idea why he would do this?" "My will," I said slowly, reaching for the cup of water on the bedside table. I took a sip and steadied my voice. "Everything I own goes to my daughter when I die." Craig's been unemployed for 3 years. Understanding dawned in the doctor's eyes. "I see. He's been living off Edith's teaching salary, and off the money I've given them for years," I continued. "My house in Grant Park's worth about $600,000 now, maybe more. Add my pension and savings. But all of it goes to your daughter," he said quietly. "Community property state," I replied flatly. "He'd still get access." The monitors beeped steadily. My heart rate had dropped slightly. Not from calm, but from focus. The same razor focus I'd used to build my restaurant from nothing. Dr. Mitchell watched me with caution, maybe wondering if I'd go into shock. But I'd already passed that point. I wasn't surprised anymore, just cold, clear. I looked back at the ceiling, that water stain shaped like Ohio. The lights hummed softly above. Somewhere down the hallway, a cart rattled by. Normal sounds, but nothing about my life was normal anymore. Craig had tried to end it twice. And now I had to find out if my daughter Edith knew. That question weighed on me heavier than anything else. My only daughter, the child who lost her mother to cancer at 16. The girl I raised alone, guided through school, helped into college, and proudly walked down the aisle. Had she known? Had she been part of it? Or was she just another victim, trapped in a marriage with a man willing to murder her father for money? "Mr. Riley?" Dr. Mitchell's voice pulled me from the thought. "Would you like me to call someone? Maybe a friend? Your daughter should know you're awake." "No," the word came out low but final. "Not yet. I needed time to think." He studied my expression and nodded, understanding without argument. "I get it. A detective will need to speak with you later today. Rest for now." He paused at the door, one hand on the frame. "You're safe here. Security's been informed. No one gets through without clearance." Then the door clicked shut, leaving me alone with the hum of machines and my thoughts. I stared again at that familiar water stain on the ceiling, my pulse steadying on the monitor, not from calm, but from resolve. For the first time in years, maybe decades, my mind was sharp, cold, and exact. The same clarity I'd relied on when I built my restaurant from nothing. Back then, I'd had to outthink suppliers who shorted me, competitors who undercut prices, critics who said soul food wasn't real cuisine. I'd survived them all. I'd built something solid, something that lasted. And now Craig thought I'd go quietly, die conveniently, leaving everything behind for Edith, for him. He was wrong. The monitors beeped their measured rhythm as I drew slow, deliberate breaths. Every inhale a thought, every exhale a plan. strategy forming in the stillness between heartbeats. Detective Collins found me in the hallway outside my hospital room, clipboard in hand, and discharge papers ready. I'd been at Emory for 10 days, 3 spent unconscious, 7 recovering. 10 days to memorize the ceiling tiles, 10 days to plan. "Mr. Riley," she said, her tone professional but careful. "Before you go, there's something you should know. Craig Brennan posted bail yesterday, $50,000. My pen didn't stop moving. The signature line waited. Smooth strokes, no tremor. "Who paid it?" I asked. "Your daughter," she said. "From a joint account in both your names." My hand finished the signature, the ink drying as I looked up. She was mid-40s, sharp eyes, gray blazer with a faint coffee stain near the pocket. Her badge read, Detective Sarah Collins. "My money bought his freedom," I said quietly, handing back the clipboard. She nodded. "Noted, the DA's preparing attempted murder charges. We've got the doctor's statement, the vial, and the cash he offered. Preliminary hearing in 3 weeks." "Good," I said evenly. She studied me, maybe waiting for outrage or grief. I gave her neither. "You'll need to testify," she added. "Are you ready for that?" "Absolutely." The cab ride from Emory to Buckhead took 20 minutes through the midday traffic. I watched the city slide past. Streets I knew now felt unfamiliar, like a puzzle rearranged while I was gone. The driver tried small talk twice, then gave up. When we turned onto Habersham Road, my chest tightened. 2847 looked exactly as I'd left it. Red brick, white shutters. The azaleas I'd planted 15 years ago now in full bloom. I paid the fare and stepped out, standing on the sidewalk. My home, now a crime scene. The place where someone had watched me swallow poison. Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor 2 doors down, waved from her garden. I didn't wave back. Before I reached the porch, the front door opened. Edith stood there, pale and hollow-eyed from sleepless nights. Behind her, Craig lingered in the foyer shadows. "Dad," her voice cracked. "Thank God you're home. We were so worried." "Stop." She froze, mid-step, her hand halfway toward me. "Dad, please, let me explain. I said stop." Craig stepped forward, palms raised, voice practiced soft. "Mr. Riley, sir, this is all a misunderstanding. The doctor must have—" I looked straight at him. Really looked. 37 years old, my height. Soft around the middle after 3 years without steady work. The man who had tried twice to end my life. "Do not speak to me," I said quietly. "Do not come near me. Stay out of my way." I walked past them, through the foyer I'd remodeled a decade earlier, past the living room furniture I'd helped Edith choose after her mother died. Every object and familiar yet tainted now. The study door waited at the end of the hall, locked. My sanctuary, the one place they never entered. Where I'd done the books, made the hard calls, kept us afloat. I pulled the key from my pocket, unlocked it, stepped inside, and turned the deadbolt. The click echoed through the hall. "Let them hear it." "Dad," Edith's voice came through the wood, muffled but pleading. "Please, can we talk? I know you're angry, but go away, Edith. I love you. Please believe that." I didn't answer. Silence, I'd learned long ago, can wound deeper than words. Her footsteps faded, followed by the low murmur of her and Craig arguing. Whispers about me, about money, about what came next. I turned to my mahogany desk, the same one from my restaurant, solid and dependable. Pulled open drawers, retrieved the files I hadn't touched in years. The will came first, 3 neatly typed pages, dated 3 years ago. 6 months after Sarah, my wife, lost her battle with pancreatic cancer. I, Percy James Riley, being of sound mind and body, hereby leave all possessions to my daughter, Edith Marie Riley. Everything. House, savings, investments, the Lexus in the garage. Over $2 million, all hers. All his, really, through her. Next came the bank files. Regions Bank, checking $87,000. Savings, $340,000. Joint account with Edith, $75,000. Last time I'd checked, that joint account had $125,000, $50,000 missing. Craig's bail, then the investments, Fidelity portfolios, retirement accounts, $680,000. Stocks, $260,000. Bonds, $200,000. I spread them all across the desk. Rows of paper, neat, deliberate. Numbers, assets, the reason I was supposed to be dead. Finally, the house deed. Purchased in 1998 for $320,000. Every cent scraped together when Buckhead was still finding its feet. Now worth over $850,000. The math was simple. Craig needed cash. I had it. Edith would inherit it. He just needed me gone. I sat back in my worn leather chair, perfectly molded to my back after 15 years, and stared at the documents, proof of my vulnerability. Everything Sarah and I had built had turned into a motive. The house creaked around me, footsteps overhead, Edith and Craig in what used to be my bedroom. Voices, low, tense, nervous. Let them worry. I opened my laptop and searched Estate Attorneys Atlanta. Dozens of names. Then one stood out. Margaret Huang, 22 years of experience in estate planning and asset protection. 5 stars everywhere. Midtown office 10 minutes away. I didn't wait for morning. At 1:47 a.m., I typed an email. Ms. Huang, I need to restructure my estate immediately. Someone attempted to kill me for my inheritance. I'm willing to pay premium for urgent consultation. Percy Riley, I hit send, shut the laptop, and looked at my will again. The same document that had nearly cost me my life. Tomorrow, that changes. Everything changes. I walked to the study window looking out over the backyard. Buckhead lay still beneath a quarter moon. My reflection in the glass looked different. Thinner, older, colder. A survivor. I didn't recognize the man staring back. But I knew one thing. He wasn't done yet. At dawn, I reopened the laptop. 47 a.m., a reply already waited. Mr. Riley, I've cleared my afternoon. Come at 2 p.m., bring all estate documents. MH short direct, exactly what I needed. I showered, dressed, my clothes hanging looser than before. The poisoning had taken something from me, but it hadn't taken my resolve. 10 days confined to that hospital bed had drained the last reserves of strength I had. The mirror reflected a stranger. Hollow cheeks, gray stubble where I usually kept a neat shave. I looked like what I'd become, a man recovering from an attempt on his life. Good. Let them see frailty. Let them believe I was defenseless. Downstairs, Edith stood by the counter brewing coffee. When she turned and saw me, hope lit her face for a brief second. Dad, good morning. I was just about to make breakfast. Just coffee, I said, pouring myself a cup, black and bitter. I have errands. Errands? Are you sure you're strong enough? I can drive you. I'm fine. I left before she could insist, taking the keys from the hook by the door. The Lexus waited where I'd left it 11 days before. Sliding into the driver's seat, I adjusted it automatically. My hands remembered their place, though the strength behind them had faded. The engine turned over smoothly. Through the kitchen window, I could see Edith watching as I backed out. Let her wonder where I was going. By 1:30 p.m., I was in Midtown Atlanta. Traffic thick, steady. I parked beneath the Promenade building and rode the elevator to the 14th floor. Margaret Huang's name was etched into frosted glass at the corner office. Sleek space, glass walls, clean furniture, skyline stretching behind her desk. The receptionist ushered me into a conference room. Margaret arrived 2 minutes later. Late 40s, Korean-American, confident and precise. Her handshake firm, her eyes assessing. A leather portfolio under one arm, iPad in the other. Mr. Riley, thank you for coming, she said, gesturing for me to sit. Tell me everything, and I did. The dinner, the aconitine, the coma, the doctor's confession about Craig's bribe attempt, the arrest, the bail Edith paid using my own funds, and finally the will, leaving every cent to her. Margaret took careful notes, fingers moving across the iPad, pausing only to ask pointed questions. How long has Craig been unemployed? When was the will written? Any recent additions to shared accounts? Life insurance? No, I said. Canceled after Sarah died. Didn't see the point. That probably saved you, she replied. No policy means one less motive on the table. Then she leaned forward. I'll be frank, Mr. Riley. If you simply rewrite your will and die, even naturally, your daughter could challenge it. Claim trauma, coercion, mental unfitness. It'll tie up your estate for years. What's my alternative? A revocable living trust. You place all assets inside it. You keep full control while you're alive, but decide who inherits after your death. How quickly can that be done? If you're ready, the trust can exist today. Full transfers in about 2 weeks. And the cost? $8,500, she said smoothly. Covers creation, transfers, legal filings. When do we begin? Her small professional smile appeared. Now. It took 3 hours of steady paperwork. Signatures, notarizations, initials, clauses. The Percy J. Riley Revocable Living Trust. Grantor and trustee, me. Beneficiary during life, me. Beneficiary after death. Who do you want listed? Margaret asked, pen ready. The American Cancer Society. Georgia chapter. She nodded without comment, only typing. I thought of Sarah, those last 4 months, the pain, the courage. If the money went anywhere, it would go toward fighting what took her. Never to Craig. I wrote the $8,500 check without hesitation. The first step in a game he could never win. The drive home was quiet. 20 minutes through Atlanta traffic. The hum of the city filtering through half-open windows. I parked, sat for a moment, composing myself. Time to play the part again. Inside, Edith was making dinner. Chicken soup, the air rich with nostalgia. She brought me a steaming bowl into the study, her eyes filled with cautious hope. Dad, I made your favorite. Just like Mom used to. I accepted it, studying her face, searching for guilt, for complicity, for any sign she'd known. I saw only fatigue, worry, and longing. Thank you, I said finally. Her shoulders softened, relief flickering in her eyes. You seem better today, calmer. I'm just tired, Edith. She nodded and left, closing the door gently behind her. I didn't touch the soup. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved carefully. Deliberate steps, feigned frailty, while methodically dismantling every financial tie Craig could ever touch. Meetings at Regions Bank were explained as routine updates. The manager transferred accounts into the trust's name without question. Fidelity took longer, calls, signatures, verifications, but I handled each quietly from the study, door locked, voice low enough that neither Edith nor Craig could overhear. The house deed transfer required an in-person visit to the Fulton County Recorder's office. Craig volunteered to drive. I know things have been tense, he said lightly, eyes fixed on the road. I just want you to know I'm here for you. Whatever you need. That's kind, Craig. I appreciate it. Family takes care of family, right? I gave him a faint smile. Right. Inside the office, I filed the deed alone. The clerk stamped the papers, sealing the transfer. Property of the Percy J. Riley Revocable Living Trust. Effective immediately. Public record. But Craig never checked. For 14 days, I watched them. The whispered arguments that fell silent when I entered. Craig's darting glances, Edith's offerings of food and affection. They thought I was beaten. Let them think it. Exactly 2 weeks after meeting Huang, I reviewed the final confirmations. Every account, every property, every dollar secure. If I died tonight, Craig and Edith would inherit nothing. Cancer research would gain everything. Filed the last document in my safe, locked it, and allowed a small, tight smile. From upstairs came muffled voices. Edith sharp, Craig's defensive. The familiar tone of fear laced with desperation. The desk phone rang. Mr. Riley, came Huang's voice, calm and precise. The deed is officially recorded. Everything's finalized. The trust is ironclad. Thank you. One more thing, she added. My paralegal noticed an odd detail. Someone ordered a professional background check on you last week. Private investigators, not cheap. The request came from an Atlanta firm. Do you know who hired them? They wouldn't say. But I can guess. I exhaled slowly. Craig, he's suspicious. He knows you've made a move, just not what kind. I hung up, eyes tracing the ceiling. The same pattern I'd memorized from the hospital. Craig was maneuvering too. The game was no longer one-sided. That evening, a knock rattled the study door. I didn't respond right away. Let him wait. The knock came again, louder, urgent. Finally, I stood, straightened my shoulders, and opened the door. Craig filled the doorway, attempting composure, but his eyes betrayed unease. His jaw clenched, shoulders stiff, a man trying too hard to appear fearless. Mr. Riley, we need to talk. Man to man. Clear the air. I stepped aside wordlessly, closed the door. He obeyed, stepping into my study like he belonged there. I remained seated, letting the leather chair creak as I leaned back. If he thought looming over me gave him power, he was mistaken. This was my ground. I know you're angry, he began. But there's been a huge misunderstanding about what happened at the hospital. I said nothing, staring at him until the silence pressed against his nerves. He shifted, continued. That vial the doctor found. I only discovered it in your medicine cabinet. I was worried, thought maybe you were taking something dangerous. I wanted the doctor to check it. You're lying. He blinked, flustered. I'm not. The doctor just misunderstood. I swear I wasn't. I opened my desk drawer, pulled out my old leather notebook, the one from my restaurant days, flipped to a marked page. Craig's eyes followed the motion, and I saw the moment he realized I'd been keeping records. I know you went to an I kept my eyes on my notes as his voice rose. And any judge will see that you're acting out of anger, not reason. I looked up slowly, locking eyes with him. Are you threatening me, Craig? I'm protecting my wife. Your daughter. The silence between us was sharp, stretched thin like a wire ready to snap. I let it hang there, calm, steady. Then I picked up my pen, the Mont Blanc Sarah had given me for our 20th anniversary, and wrote a number across the notepad, each stroke deliberate, bold. When I finished, I turned the pad around and slid it toward him. Craig's hand shook as he lifted it, read the number and set it down fast like the page had caught fire. $252,000. How much do you owe me, Craig? I asked. What? I don't owe you anything. What are you talking about? You've lived in my home for 5 years, rent-free. This house rents for $4,200 a month. I checked. 5 years? That's 60 months. Do the math. His face drained from red to ghostly pale in seconds.
We're family.
You never asked for rent, Edith's your daughter. $252,000, I repeated, my tone like stone. That's what you owe. You have 60 days to repay me, or move out. His voice cracked. I don't have that kind of money. You know I don't. Then I suggest you start packing. His mouth opened, shut, opened again. No words came out. His face twisted between disbelief, anger, panic, so faster than I could track. Then came the sound of footsteps pounding down the stairs, fast, desperate. Edith appeared in the doorway, breathless, eyes wide. Dad, what's going on? Craig, what did you do? Craig turned to her, and I saw it. That instant decision to twist the story, to play the victim. Your father wants $250,000. He cried, his voice pitching high. Or he's kicking us out. His own daughter, out on the street. Edith froze, eyes shimmering with tears. She turned to me, her voice already breaking. Dad, please. We don't have that kind of money. You can't mean this. After everything, after your surgery, this is how you treat us? I stood, walked around the desk, each step deliberate. I stopped 3 feet away from her, close enough to see her mascara starting to run, her trembling hands twisting together. Your husband tried to kill me, Edith. Twice. Once with poison at my own table, and again with a vial of paralytic in the hospital. And you... I paused, my voice cutting like glass. You bailed him out. You took $50,000 of my money to free the man who tried to end my life. She flinched, eyes dropping to the floor. So yes, I continued, calm, final. You have 60 days. Find the money or find a new place to live. That's more time than Craig gave me when he tried to poison my food. I walked past them both, leaving them standing in the study surrounded by my books, my restaurant awards, and the photos of Sarah. I climbed the stairs to the guest room, the small one at the end of the hall. The one with cheap furniture. They'd taken my master suite while I was in the hospital. Behind me, I heard Edith break into sobs, Craig's voice rumbling with excuses. Let me explain, he said. But I didn't stop. I shut the door, turned the lock, and for the first time in 3 weeks I slept through the night. Morning sunlight woke me. Georgia light, warm and bright through the window. 7 a.m. My phone said I'd slept 9 hours straight. No nightmares, no flashes of hospital lights, no feeling of dying. Just peace. I showered, dressed, and went downstairs. Edith was already in the kitchen. Pale, exhausted, still in yesterday's clothes. The smell of coffee hung in the air. I poured myself a cup, black, and waited. She spoke first, voice raw. Dad, please. 60 days isn't enough time to find that kind of money. I took a sip, let it burn. No, it isn't, because you don't have it and never will. Then why? Why do this? Why not let us stay? We can make payments, something. I set the cup down. Because your husband tried to kill me, and you helped him walk free. Her lips parted, then closed again. She had no answer. That afternoon, I called Margaret Hang, my lawyer. Explained everything. By evening, the document was ready. Formal, binding, airtight. At 7 p.m., I laid it on the kitchen table. A notary sat with us. Margaret's paralegal, young, efficient, silent. This, I said, sliding the paper across, is a promissory note. Sign it and you get 60 days to pay in full or move out. Don't sign, and I file eviction tomorrow morning. Craig sneered. Some choice. It's more than you gave me when you poisoned my dinner. Edith's tears streamed as she pushed the paper back. How can you do this? I'm your daughter. Your only child. Mom would be ashamed of you. The mention of Sarah hit like a punch to the ribs, but I didn't waver. Your husband tried to kill me twice. What's cruel, Edith? Letting you live here 5 years, rent-free? Or watching me eat poison in my own home? She whispered, trembling. I didn't think he'd actually... I didn't know. But you suspected and said nothing. You chose him over me. I turned, walked away, leaving her tears and his anger behind. An hour later, when I came back, the document was signed. Shaky but legal. The notary's seal pressed firm. The next weeks felt like war, cold, quiet war. 3 people sharing one roof but living in silence. The house felt both too big and too small. I moved like a ghost, cooking at 6 a.m. before they woke, eating in my study, locking my door every time I left. Boxes appeared one by one, first in the foyer, then the hallway, then everywhere. I watched Craig loading furniture into the car, selling things for cash. Watched Edith on the phone, begging apartment managers, her voice more desperate each day. By week 3, Craig tried again. Found me in the study. Knocked softly. Mr. Riley, what if we paid in installments? $500 a month, until it's done. I didn't look up. At $500 a month, that's 35 years, Craig. You'd be 72. I'd be long gone. Silence. So, that's a no? What do you think? He left. His footsteps sounded heavier than when he came in. By week 5, the call came. Mr. Riley, Detective Collins said. Update on your case. We found the seller. Goes by Dark Merchant online. Sold your son-in-law the conatine extract. We have the full trail. Messages, crypto payments, shipping proof. It's solid. When's the trial? May 14th. Preliminary hearings April 3rd. He's facing 15 to 25 years. A quiet satisfaction spread through me, deep and warm. Good. The 60th day came on a Tuesday in late May. Morning light filtered through the study, soft and golden. I sat with my coffee waiting. At 9 a.m. sharp, a moving truck rolled up. 2 college kids from Craigslist, not professionals. I watched from my chair as Craig and Edith carried boxes, furniture, lamps Sarah once picked out. Edith held one box labeled kitchen in thick black marker. She set it down gently in the truck bed and went back for another. Her movements were mechanical, her face completely blank. Shock, maybe acceptance. Craig barked orders at the movers, shouting about weight distribution and fragile items, pretending like this whole thing was his decision, his exit, his control. But I saw through him, desperation hiding behind a mask of command. By noon, the truck was packed. Edith walked into the house one last time. I heard her footsteps in the foyer, hesitant, moving toward the stairs, stopping, then turning toward my study. She appeared in the doorway. Didn't step in. Didn't ask permission. We're leaving now. Her voice, completely empty. Hollow. I looked up from my papers, documents I wasn't actually reading, just props for this moment. I met her eyes but said nothing. I hope you're happy, she said. You won. You got exactly what you wanted. Still, I didn't speak. Do you even love me anymore? Her voice cracked. Am I still your daughter? The question hung in the air like smoke. I could have answered. I could have offered mercy, left a door open for reconciliation. Instead, I returned my gaze to the papers. Goodbye, Edith. She stood there. 3 seconds. I counted them. Then she turned and walked away. The front door opened, closed. The truck engine started. A low diesel rumble fading into the quiet neighborhood. I set my pen down and walked to the window, watching the moving truck pull away from 2847 Habsham Road. turning the corner onto Peachtree. Disappearing. The house was silent again. Empty, mine. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Detective Collins. Preliminary hearing tomorrow. 9 a.m. Your testimony required. I typed back, I'll be there. I looked around my study. The mahogany desk, the plaques, Sarah's smiling photos in their frames. My house. Won back through strategy, patience, and legal precision. Tomorrow, the courtroom. The next phase begins. The knock came late afternoon, a week before the eviction deadline. Soft, hesitant, not Craig's knock. I opened the study door. Edith stood there. Eyes red, hands twisted together. "Dad," she whispered. "I need to tell you something. The truth. All of it." I stepped aside silently and let her in. But I left the door open, wide enough for anyone in the hall to hear. No privacy, no intimacy, just conversation. "You have 30 minutes, I said, taking my seat behind the desk. "Craig isn't here. Say what you came to say." She sat across from me, leaning forward, hands clasped like a prayer, but I'd stopped believing in prayers. "I knew," she began, voice small. "About Craig's plan. Not all of it. But I knew he wanted to scare you." I picked up my pen, held it steady. "Continue." "He said if you got really sick, not dying, just sick enough, you'd realize life is short. You'd change the will, give me access to money sooner." He said it was psychological pressure. I didn't think he'd actually try to kill you. My grip tightened around the pen, the only visible sign of what I felt. "But you knew he put something in my food." Her words came faster, rehearsed. "Not poison. I thought it was just something mild. Food poisoning. I thought it would pass." I stood, walked to the window, turned my back to her. I couldn't bear to watch her face as she constructed this lie. "When did you realize it was poison, Edith?" "Real poison. At the hospital," her voice broke. "When the doctor said your organs were shutting down. When you were in a coma for 3 days. I wanted to tell someone. But Craig said if I did, I'd be arrested too. He said we'd both go to prison." "So," I asked quietly, "you chose to protect him instead of me?" "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I was scared. I made a mistake. But I'm here now telling you everything." She moved closer. "I'll leave him. I'll testify. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't cut me out completely. I'm your daughter." I turned from the window and met her eyes. "You knew and stayed silent while I was dying. That makes you an accomplice, Edith. I was manipulated." "You made a choice," I said. "You chose him and his plan over my life." "I'll divorce him," she pleaded. "I'll leave him with nothing. I'll cooperate with the police. Just tell me what you want." "I'll fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I said coldly. "You can't undo silence. You can't undo betrayal." I walked to the door and opened it wider. "No, Edith, you made your choice." Her face flushed. "So that's it? You're throwing me away and your only child. You threw yourself away when you let him poison me." I stepped aside, motioning to the hall. "Goodbye, Edith." She stood there, 3 seconds, 5, then turned and walked out, pulling the door shut behind her with shaking hands. I listened to her footsteps cross the foyer. Front door, car engine gone. I sat back at my desk. The chair she'd occupied was still warm. I stared at it, then picked up my phone. "Margaret Huang, please," I said when the line connected. "Ms. Huang, it's Percy Riley. I need to confirm. If something happens to me, the trust is ironclad. My daughter can't contest it." A pause. I listened to her reply. "No, nothing's wrong," I said softly. "Just making sure all the pieces are in place." The days that followed were unnervingly quiet. Craig and Edith moved out as scheduled, loading boxes into a rental truck on a gray Saturday morning. I watched from the upstairs window. Neither of them looked back. When they were gone, I walked through the empty rooms. Master bedroom echoing, kitchen spotless. They'd erased their presence, but not their betrayal. Weeks passed. Detective Collins briefed me on trial procedures. The DA coached me on my testimony. "Facts only," he said. "No emotion. The jury needs to see you as credible." Calm, clear, dignified. "Can you do that?" I could. The night before the trial, I pressed my suit, selected a navy tie, laid out the medical records, the timeline, the hospital photographs. Every piece of evidence organized. Morning came cold and clear. Mason, Atlanta, spring tipping into summer. I dressed carefully, checked my reflection. The man staring back wasn't the same one who'd shared dinner with Craig 4 months ago. Harder, leaner, eyes like steel. I drove to the Fulton County Courthouse, parked, walked up the stone steps. Detective Collins waited by the entrance. "Mr. Riley, ready?" I nodded and stepped through security. The metal detector beeped. My watch. I took it off, tried again, clear. Elevator to the 3rd floor. Courtroom 3B, doors closed. "Hearing in session. They're wrapping up jury selection," Collins said. "You'll be called after opening statements, in about an hour." I sat on a bench outside, watching lawyers hurry past with files and phones. Inside, Craig sat at the defense table, Edith somewhere in the gallery, both waiting for me to speak. A bailiff opened the door. "The state calls Percy James Riley to the stand." I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked in. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined from television. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag behind the judge's bench. The gallery was packed. Spectators, reporters, a sketch artist scribbling in the back row. Craig sat at the defense table, thinner, suit hanging loose. He didn't look at me as I passed. I raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat in the witness chair. Assistant DA David Chen approached, folder in hand. "Mr. Riley, please describe the evening of January 15th for the jury." I looked at the 12 faces in the jury box. 7 women, 5 men, ages from mid-20s to 70s, all watching me intently. "My daughter and her husband came for dinner," I said. "I prepared roasted chicken, vegetables, salad. We ate around 7 p.m. Within an hour, I felt severely ill." "What symptoms did you experience?" "Nausea, difficulty breathing. Rapid heartbeat." I called emergency services. I remember the ambulance. Then nothing, until I woke up 3 days later in the ICU. Chen nodded. "And what did Dr. Mitchell tell you about your son-in-law's actions at the hospital?" "He said Craig approached him with $15,000 in cash and a vial of liquid. He asked the doctor to inject it into my IV while I was unconscious. Dr. Mitchell refused and reported it immediately." "How did that make you feel?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. I realized something horrifying. My own son-in-law had tried to kill me. Not once, but twice. First with poison at dinner, and again later in the hospital. When that first attempt failed, Chen kept digging, question after question, and I answered each one precisely, without a shred of embellishment. I pulled my reading glasses from my pocket, glanced at the medical document in front of me, and maintained steady eye contact with the jury. When Chen finally wrapped up, Craig's attorney rose from his seat. Marcus Webb, a weary public defender with tired eyes and a stained briefcase. "Mr. Riley," he began, "isn't it true you changed your will shortly after waking from the coma? You cut your daughter out entirely." "I restructured my estate," I replied evenly. "Out of revenge? Out of anger? Or out of self-preservation?" "Someone tried to murder me for my money," I said coldly. "So I removed the motive." "You evicted your own daughter," Webb pressed. "You demanded $4 million you knew she couldn't pay. That sounds vindictive, doesn't it?" "I charged fair market rent," I said. 5 years of housing. "That's business, not vindictiveness." "Business?" he shot back. "Or punishment? Because you suspected she knew?" Chen was on his feet instantly. "Objection, speculation. Edith Riley isn't on trial here." Judge Thompson, mid-50s, steel-gray hair, eyes that saw through everything, leaned forward. "Sustained. Move on, Mr. Webb." He tried 3 more angles, but I didn't bite. Eventually, he dismissed me. I returned to the gallery, sat in the back row, and watched the rest unfold. Dr. Mitchell testified next, calm, professional, describing the bribe attempt, the vial, and his report to security. His words were measured, credible. Then came the toxicology expert. He explained that the substance was conatine, a plant-based poison, highly lethal with no legitimate medical use. He showed the jury photos of the monk's hood plant it came from, and described how it silently stops the heart. Finally, video testimony appeared on screen. The darknet seller, face blurred, voice distorted, speaking under a plea deal. He confirmed he'd sold conatine extract to a buyer whose cryptocurrency wallet matched Craig Brennan's. Message logs, transaction history, everything laid bare. Craig's defense was desperate. Webb had no choice but to put him on the stand. "I made terrible mistakes," Craig began, voice trembling. "But I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted Percy to appreciate life more, to realize how fragile things are. If he got sick, just sick, maybe he'd change his lifestyle, maybe share his resources sooner with Edith, in case something happened." It was absurd, transparent. The jury's faces said it all. They weren't buying a word of it. Closing arguments lasted an hour. Chen, precise, methodical, cataloged every piece of evidence. Webb, on the other hand, scrambled for scraps of reasonable doubt that simply didn't exist. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. I waited in the hallway, drinking bad vending machine coffee beside Detective Collins, who silently scrolled through her phone. When the bailiff called us back, I saw the verdict in his eyes before he spoke. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Thompson asked. A woman in her 60s, the foreperson, stood. "We have, Your Honor. We find the defendant, Craig Brennan, guilty of attempted murder, with aggravating circumstances." Behind me, Edith gasped, a sharp, broken sob, but I didn't turn to look at her. Craig's shoulders sagged. His head dropped. Webb placed a gentle hand on his arm as Judge Thompson delivered the sentence. "Mr. Brennan, the jury has found you guilty of attempted murder with aggravating circumstances. Do you have anything to say before I impose sentence?" Craig stood, legs shaking. "Your Honor, I never meant to actually hurt anyone. I made terrible mistakes, but I'm not a murderer." "You purchased poison online," Thompson said coldly. "You administered it to your father-in-law. When he survived, you tried to finish the job in his hospital room. The evidence is overwhelming." Her gavel struck once, sharp. "I sentence you to 18 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. You'll be eligible for parole after serving 85%. The bailiffs moved in. Handcuffs clicked around Craig's wrists. He turned toward Edith, reaching across the barrier, but she couldn't touch him. I stood and walked out. I didn't look back. Outside, the evening light stretched long shadows across downtown Atlanta. Detective Collins caught up with me on the courthouse steps. 18 years, she said quietly. "Good outcome. He'll be an old man when he gets out." I nodded, adjusting my tie. "Mr. Riley," she continued, "I need to ask you something. We have enough to charge Edith Riley as an accessory. She paid bail knowing what her husband had done. If you're willing to testify, any conversation suggesting prior knowledge, we can build a case." I watched the cars passing on the street below. Life going on, ordinary, untouched. "No," I said finally. "No, I won't testify against my daughter. What she did, or didn't do, she'll live with. But I won't put her in prison." Collins studied my face. "That's generous, after everything." "It's not generous," I said. "It's final. She's lost her home, her inheritance, her husband, and her father. That's enough." She nodded slowly. "Understood. Case closed." Then she extended her hand. I shook it. I walked to my car, unlocked it, and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. Through the courthouse windows above, I saw movement. Edith probably waiting for Craig's transfer, hoping for a final word through reinforced glass. I started the engine and drove toward Buckhead, toward my empty house. Tomorrow I'd call Margaret Huang to confirm the trust paperwork one last time. For now, I just drove. The city passed by my windows, spring becoming summer. I had survived. I had won. What came next was mine to decide. The call started 3 days after the trial. Edith's number lit up my screen. I pressed delete without listening. The next day, another call, delete. 2 more that week, delete, delete. Then came letters, her handwriting on every envelope. I returned them all, marked return to sender. Emails, automatically filtered to spam. I'd set that rule the day Craig was sentenced. 6 weeks of this, late May through June. Each attempt ignored with cold, mechanical precision. I'd built a restaurant from nothing by focusing on what mattered and cutting distractions. Edith had become distraction. Early July brought a knock on my front door. I peered through the peephole. Edith, standing there with a man in a suit holding a folder. I opened the door, just 6 inches, the chain still latched. "Mr. Riley," the man said. I represent Edith Riley Brennan in a legal challenge to the trust established in your name. He tried to pass papers through the gap. We believe, give me the papers, I said flatly. Sir, if we could just discuss, I took the documents. No, you'll hear from my attorney. I shut the door. Heard muffled voices on the other side. Didn't care what they said. Within an hour, Margaret Huang called. She's claiming you created the trust under duress, Margaret explained. Diminished capacity. She wants it invalidated so she can inherit. Her voice was calm, almost amused. It's a weak case, she said. How weak? I asked. We have documentation of every meeting. A clear timeline showing you waited weeks after hospitalization. I'll request a psychiatric evaluation to prove competence. The judge will dismiss it quickly. How quickly? 2 weeks, maybe 3. I'll file our response tomorrow. The hearing took place mid-July in civil court. Different building, different judge. Judge Patricia Morrison. Silver gray hair, reading glasses. The kind of presence that demanded respect. I sat in the gallery while Margaret presented our defense. Across the aisle, Edith sat beside her attorney, whispering urgently. Margaret was thorough. The timeline, the psychiatric report by Dr. Richard Foster. A comprehensive evaluation proving I was of sound mind, free of undue influence, deliberate in every action. The evidence is clear, Your Honor, Margaret concluded. Mr. Riley exercised his constitutional right to manage his estate as he saw fit. The trust was created with proper legal counsel, a reasonable waiting period, and complete mental competence. The petitioner's claims are without merit. Judge Morrison read silently for a long moment. Then she looked over her glasses at Edith's attorney. The petitioner argues Mr. Riley created this trust under extreme emotional distress, following a poisoning attempt, suggesting diminished capacity, she said slowly. However, the evidence shows otherwise. The trust was formed with legal guidance, psychiatric confirmation, and deliberate timing. That is not distress. That is clarity. A pause. Edith leaned forward. Breath held. Motion to invalidate the trust is denied. Her attorney tried. Your Honor, my client requests, with prejudice, counselor. This matter is closed. The gavel struck. I left the courthouse while Edith was still arguing in the hallway. At home, I brewed a cup of coffee and returned Margaret's call. She's in serious financial trouble, Margaret told me. No income, no assets, no family support. She'll likely file bankruptcy within 6 months. That's not my concern, I said. As your attorney, I have to ask, do you want to offer any settlement? Sometimes a small payment can prevent future harassment. I thought for a moment, running the math. $25,000. One-time payment. She signs a binding no-contact agreement. If she violates it, she repays the full amount, plus legal fees. I'll draft it today, Margaret said. 3 days later, she called again. She signed, Margaret reported. Barely read it, just signed. The money's already in her account. Did she say anything? I asked. She asked if you were in the building. I said no. Then she asked if you'd ever forgive her. What did you say? I said, that wasn't part of our discussion. I stood by the window of my study, looking out at Buckhead, the city lights stretching far into the distance. Good, I said quietly. That's done then. Yes, Margaret replied. You're legally protected. She couldn't contact me again without facing a serious financial penalty. Thank you, Margaret, I said quietly. Send me your final invoice. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a text notification. Agreement signed. Payment cleared. File closed. I read it twice. Then I set the phone down, lifted my coffee mug. Empty. Done. Legally, financially, emotionally done. I took a slow walk through my house, room by room. The master bedroom, mine again. Guest rooms, empty. Kitchen, spotless. Living room, arranged exactly the way I liked it. No moving boxes, no tension. No muffled arguments behind closed doors. Just quiet. My house, my life. My rules. Outside, the afternoon sun slanted through the trees. Atlanta summers, thick, green, heavy with heat. The garden needed work. I'd let it go through all the chaos. Flower beds overtaken by weeds, grass growing wild. Tomorrow, I decided I'd call a landscaping service. Not because I couldn't do it myself, but because I wanted it done right. The house phone rang. Margaret Hain. Just confirming you received my text, she said. Everything's executed. The agreement is filed. Your estate is secure. Unless she violates the no-contact clause, you'll never hear from her again. Thank you, Margaret, for everything. You're welcome. Take care, Mr. Riley. You've earned your peace. I hung up and stood in my study, surrounded by old certificates, restaurant awards, community recognitions. Framed photos of the places I'd built, of the man I used to be, and the man I was becoming again. July ended with thunderstorms, heavy rain washing the streets clean, leaving behind that earthy scent only rain can make. I sat on my back terrace watching lightning fork across the sky, thinking about everything that had happened this year. January's poisoning felt like a lifetime ago. Tomorrow was August. A new month. A new beginning. Time to look forward instead of back. My phone buzzed again. Detective Collins. Mr. Riley, she said. Thought you'd want to know. Craig Brennan got into a fight at Georgia Diagnostic Prison. Earned himself 30 days in segregation and a permanent mark on his record. I sipped my morning coffee on the terrace the next day, the August heat already building. That affects his parole eligibility? I asked. He wasn't eligible for at least 12 years anyway, she said, but yes. Violations like that don't look good. He'll serve most of his sentence. Probably all of it. Good, I said simply. Thank you for letting me know. She hesitated, then asked softly, How are you doing? Settling back into normal life? I am, I told her. The house is quiet. I'm keeping busy. You did everything right legally. Most people would have taken matters into their own hands. You used the system instead, made it work for you. I smiled faintly. I'm too old for messy. I wanted justice, not revenge. Her light laugh came through the phone. From where I stood, it looked a lot like both. Take care, Mr. Riley. After hanging up, I went out to the garden. Pulled weeds with gloved hands, clearing the overgrowth around the azaleas. It felt good. Real work, tangible progress. A landscaping crew came twice a week now. Professionals who knew their craft, but I still liked to keep my hands in it. Ownership meant care, not delegation. By mid-afternoon, I drove into Midtown, Octane Coffee. Found Robert Chen sitting at a corner table, 2 cappuccinos already waiting. Percy, he said, standing to shake my hand. Been too long. 5 years since the closing party, right? 5 years since you swore you'd never touch the restaurant business again. I smiled. Yeah, feels like yesterday. So what's this about, Gummy asked. I told him briefly about everything. The poisoning, the trial, the aftermath. He listened quietly, face hardening as I spoke. So your son-in-law tried to kill you for your money, he said finally. And you dismantled his life, legally, systematically. I protected myself, I replied. He destroyed his own life. Robert gave a low whistle. Still, cold-blooded. Impressive, but cold. I smiled again. I learned from the best. Remember that supplier in Deer Wait? The one who tried to shake us down. He laughed. Documentation, lawyers, patience. Yeah, I remember. Well, I said, so what's this meeting really about? He raised an eyebrow. You tell me. A restaurant project, I said. Small place. 30 seats, dinner only. High quality, not high volume. He leaned back. You serious? You said you were done. I was done building an empire, I said. But I'm not done cooking. Not done creating. I leaned forward. Something intimate, reservation only, seasonal menu. Maybe in Virginia Highland. You'd need staff, permits, investors. I'd need a partner, I interrupted. Someone who still remembers why we started doing this. Because we love the craft. The food, the feeling. The money came later. Remember that? Robert stared at his cappuccino, then looked up. Yeah, he said softly. Yeah, I remember. Talk to your wife, I told him. Think about it. I'm not in a hurry. We talked for another hour. Sketched menu ideas on napkins. Argued about flavors. Laughed about old disasters. The broken freezer. The impossible critic. The Thanksgiving we ran out of turkey at 7 p.m. normal conversation. Normal life. As evening settled, I drove home. Parked in the driveway. Stood for a moment looking through the front windows. Everything was exactly as it should be. Everything mine. Everything safe. Inside, I made dinner. Simple pasta, sautéed vegetables, a glass of wine. Ate on the terrace while the sun dipped low, the sky turning orange, then purple, then deep blue. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Talk to my wife. She's in if you are. Let's look at that space next week. I typed back. Tuesday, 10 a.m. sent. The calendar showed August 10th, 6 months since Craig had poisoned my dinner. 7 months since I'd trusted my daughter. A lifetime since I'd been naive. I'd learned, adapted, survived, and more than that, I'd rebuilt. Craig Brennan would be nearly 60 before he ever breathed free air again. Edith was out there somewhere, living her smaller life, bound by the limits I set. And me, I was free. I walked to my study, opened the safe, checked the trust documents one last time, then closed it. Everything secure. Everything protected. Everything mine. Tomorrow I'd thank Margaret properly, maybe a gift. Send a donation to the police foundation in Detective Collins's name. Close every loose thread, and then begin again. Not for the money, not out of distraction, but because I wanted to create, because the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was living well. That night I walked upstairs. My room, my bed, my peace. Before sleeping, I looked out the window. Buckhead shimmered in the summer dark, city lights sparkling across the horizon. Somewhere out there, people were being betrayed, poisoned, lied to, stolen from. I hoped they fought back. I hoped they survived. I hoped they won. Because I had, and I'd shown it was possible. Percy Riley closed the curtains, lay down, and slept without dreams. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.